Hello and welcome back to my channel. A slightly different episode today. Obviously we've started the FM19 beta by playing through the Arsenal save, the A New Era. I'll link the playlist down below so you can go back and have a look at some of those episodes if you want to, if that's your thing. But today we're looking at things to do in Football Manager, so teams to manage if you're struggling for a team to pick, or some challenges that you can maybe look at introducing, and if that's what you want to do and go down that route. I've done both in my FM time. I mean, I've been playing this game for so long, going back to the Championship Managers back in 95, 96 was my first one. Obviously I'm doing Championship Manager years around that game as well at the moment, trying to squeeze those out as well. So if you like that, I'll try and pop the playlist in for that as well. But yeah, so we're looking at the teams. So first of all, we'll start looking at the teams, and I've got quite a few here, so I'm going to try and keep them fairly brief, and just give a few reasons maybe why you should consider them as sort of teams to go with on FM19, either beta or when the full release comes out on, I think it's 2nd of November. So the first team is Shakhtar Donetsk. Now the obvious reason for this is that I managed these on FM18 last year, and if you caught that save, if you're not new to my channel, you obviously know that, and you know how much I love that save. I wish I could still be playing it now, and I wish I could carry on that save in FM19, even if not on YouTube, just to carry it on. I did carry it on for a little bit after the game finished, so yeah, I loved it, and it was my main save, and I just highly recommend it. They are the big boys in the Ukrainian league, but there's a lot of work to be done to compete on the continent in the Champions League, that sort of thing. I did eventually win a Champions League. I think it took 5, maybe 6 seasons, and yeah, it was a tough old slog the first year, particularly with very limited resources. But you can bring in players from South America, buy them cheap, sell them high, start getting money in. Some of the other clubs will also come in for some of the players you already have if they're not really in your team. Players like Bernard, I think he's not there now, he's just gone, but I had him last year, sold him. There was Tyson. A few of those can go for big money. So once you start doing that and bring in your own players, it eases up, and it's probably a good 5 seasons. I reached a few finals, I think semi-finals, before I eventually won it, and it was before I had a team really capable of winning it. So yeah, highly recommend Shakhtar Donetsk. The second team is UD Ibiza, or Union Deportivo Ibiza. Now, if anyone's not aware or not watched my FM19 plans video before the game come out, these were between my main save that I'm going to be doing and Ibiza were the two that I was sort of umming and ahhing between deciding. In all that umming and ahhing, someone did get there before me, Captain Beardy Man FM. So if you do want to watch something like that as well, go and watch his channel. He hasn't started yet, I think he's away at the moment, but when he comes back, I'm sure for the full release he'll be dropping his thing, and his trailer for that was absolutely incredible as well. So he's doing it justice that probably I wouldn't have been able to do. The levels he's brought to that intro alone are amazing. He's got all the kits done, all the badges, everything's ready to go. As far as what I've seen, it looks amazing. But yeah, they're an interesting project. They've got the former Italy international Marco Borriello there. They weren't going to be in the game this season, but they've remarkably been promoted at the expense of someone with financial irregularities, I think. So they paid off their debts for the other club and took their place in the Football League. I think it's the Segunda Division 2 or something. It's not quite the league below. It's the La Liga, Liga Adelante, and then it's, I think, the tier below there. So it's in with a lot of the B teams, C teams, that sort of thing, and just playing it in one of the groups in that. So it's one of the regional divisions down there. So it's going to be a tough slog to get out of. But with Marco Borriello up front, it gives you a chance, and it's an interesting twist on an interesting story. Good money, good backing from what I gather, and I just love Ibiza. So yeah, give Union Ibiza a try. Team 3 is Leeds United, and obviously really interesting season. They've appointed Bielsa as their manager. There's a few people I think did some saves last year. Golden FM springs to mind, trying to replicate him in the old engine. Obviously he's there in this game, so you can knock him out and try and take over, do what he's doing, try and play his style. If you watch Golden FM's, he's good. It gives a few insights. There's a few things around as well. I'm sure there's some few blog posts you can look up and see sort of what styles he implicates. So you can try and replicate those in your save. And yeah, just try and see what Leeds are doing this season. Try and sort of imprint that methodology on the team, and well, bring a sleeping giant back to life, back to the Premier League. Team 4, Parma in Serie A. They are finally back in Serie A. They've worked their way back up the ranks, and they're probably on most of these lists that most people create most years. They're always on them because they've just, everyone has this thing for Parma that years ago, I mean, even if they weren't your team, they had some of the most amazing players in the world, even if they weren't the most amazing team in the world at times. Talking Buffon, Aspria, I'm trying to think off my head, so many, Cannavaro, so many players played for Parma, Lilian Thuram played for Parma, Crespo, so many players played for Parma back in the day, and to see them fall from grace is just disappointing. They ended up in the very, very low Serie A, Serie C, Serie D, something like that. They've worked their way back up, they're back in Serie A, they've got Gervinho playing there, and it's just a really interesting sort of nostalgic take on a save, I guess, even if a lot of people do it every year. Dr. Benji did a famous save on it a few years ago on FM. I don't know if anyone's doing one this year. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a beta save out there focusing on Parma, but can you keep them in Serie A? Give it a try. The next team is Arsenal, and obviously I'm doing them on my beta save at the moment, and this is also sort of a different take on one, because there's a bit of a new structure at Arsenal. All the backroom has been completely rejigged. They finally brought in some players that address a lot of the weaknesses over the last 10 years or so under Wenger. So can you reverse the slump of this team? That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do it with a slightly different twist and bringing the Invincibles system back into play. Not going okay, I guess, but you'll see in the upcoming episodes how well it's going if we stick with it and if we can get some success. Or if you don't want to go that route, you can go the Unai Emery route, try and adapt his approach. There's so many things you can do. There's so many players in there that can play in different roles that you can really kind of go your own way with it. And yeah, it's just an interesting save. Even if it's not a long-term save, a couple of seasons, it's a really interesting project to try and get behind. Aston Villa. Well, what hasn't been said about Aston Villa recently? They find themselves in the Championship for the second season. Their parachute payments must be coming to an end very soon, running out. A sleeping giant just waiting to be woken up again, a bit like Leeds. Not as long sleeping as Leeds, but certainly down there, and probably shouldn't be down there. Steve Bruce recently sacked, had a cabbage thrown at him, wasn't able to get them back up. He's perennially known for getting teams back up to the Premier League. Couldn't do it with Villa, with probably the best squad in the league. You know, it's there for you to do, so give it a try. Another one for the Premier League, obviously we've talked about Arsenal, but Wolverhampton Wanderers. They've got great backing, good money behind them, a decent squad there already, a good core squad, great infrastructure, and it's basically waiting there for someone to, well, it's happening at the moment, to be taken to the next level. You know, at the moment they're doing really well in the league. Can they get a European spot? Can you get a European spot? Can you win the league? Maybe not the first season, a year or two in, maybe, but there's certainly a good core, big Portuguese contingent. Can you build on that? Do you want to go down that route? Maybe bring more Portuguese sort of players in, sort of a bit like the Arsenal's team with the old French Revolution, all French players. Can you do that at Wolves? Build a Portuguese team around it. Doesn't have to be, but take them to the next level, take them into Europe, and I think they've won a European title in their history before. Maybe do that again. For a slightly different take on a save, this one is Aberdeen, and obviously behind Celtic and Rangers, they are probably the most successful club in Scotland. Obviously Celtic and Rangers are far and away, but if you go back to the 80s, Aberdeen were winning probably most things under Sir Alex Ferguson a lot of that time as well. And can you bring them back to that 80s heyday, those days of Sir Alex Ferguson? They were competing in European Cups, this, that and the other. I don't think he ever won a European Cup, but I think he may have won one of the secondary ones, maybe the UEFA Cup. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, can you overcome Celtic? Can you overcome a re-energised Rangers as well, and become the best team in Scotland, not only just for one season but prolonged success? Can you get them there? Can you keep them there? Many have tried, many have failed. Can you do it? And now the final European team I've gone for is, again, finish on a high with an always popular save idea, and it's Ajax in Holland. I mean, what can you say about Holland? You got Ajax, a great team, certainly historically, a bit more of a selling club now, not really used to the success that they had in the 70s, even in the 90s under like Louis van Gaal and people like that. Players like Nwankwo Kanu, Dennis Bergkamp, Seedorf, Davids. I mean, the list is endless. Clive, the list is endless with that team. In the 95 Ajax team, absolutely historic Champions League team. So can you bring this team back to its old glory days, compete in Europe once again, keep hold of your best players, root through the youth team again, bring through the next generation of superstars, Dutch or otherwise, and just bring them through success, and then just maintain that success. It's an interesting challenge. I've tried it before. It's harder than it sounds, but it's definitely fun and worth a go. Now, I've got a couple of save ideas that feature outside of Europe. The first one is Guangzhou Evergrande. I did actually manage this team a few years ago. I think it was FM19. I absolutely loved it there. It was, I was doing a Pentagon challenge, and I think they were my second, maybe third team in the save. I started in South Africa, and then I worked my way to, it was either Argentina or here, and I absolutely loved this Chinese spell of it. It was really hard bringing the foreign players, too many foreign players, and having to have so many Chinese playing, but once you start getting some good Chinese players in as well alongside the foreign guys, it's crazy. And the money in the league now, historically they were the best team in China, but they've lost their way with that investment in the league. A lot of bigger names, bigger managers, bigger players are all flooding into this league for the money and have been overtaken essentially. So can you, again, wake a sleeping giant in China, get some big names from Europe coming in, take them to the next level and just keep them there, maybe win the AFC, or is it the Asian Champions League, something like that. Can you do it? This one is another popular one. It's Tigres in Mexico. They're pretty much the main force domestically, but they have a bit of a larger challenge, I think, in the continental competitions. I believe they enter the South American Copa Libertadores, I believe. But it's a really tough one. Obviously, I think they've got, I forget his name now, that French striker playing up front. He's there. I can't remember his name. Gignac, is it? I think he's at Tigres. Great team there, ready to go. Keep the Mexican league winning, but take them to the next level in the continental competitions. Like I say, I'm sure it's Libertadores, but that whole region, MLS, North America, South America, the leagues and the format are just baffling. I've done them, don't envy them, anyone who does it, but that would be a great save to take on, and just, yeah, it's something slightly different out of the norm, I guess, from the European teams, the European giant. Jumping back into the MLS like we just discussed is Atalanta United. And now again, I have done a MLS save. It was part of the Pentagon. It was probably step 4 or 5 before Europe. I ended up at Orlando some years way into the game after most players had retired, whatever. But yeah, they're one of the newer members of the MLS. They got a good squad, Barco being the notable one. Obviously we had him at Shakhtar last year for a good few years. Didn't really utilise him in the end because the tactic we played sort of phased him out a little bit. But they've also got Carlos Bocanegra of Fulham fame sort of involved behind the scenes. They got Gerardo Martino, the former Barcelona manager, currently in charge. Can you do better than a former Barcelona manager and take a relatively new franchise in the MLS to success, take them to that title? You got there's the 2 competitions, Supporters Shield and I think it's the MLS Cup or something. Can you win either of those, both of those, whatever? Tough ask, tough league, tough format, tough rules, but interesting nonetheless. Now, I mentioned I did go back to South Africa. I started in South Africa in my Pentagon challenge. It wasn't with one of the big boys. It wasn't Orlando Pirates, or as now one of the big boys, Super Sport, or anything like that, or Kaiser Chiefs. I started in FC Cape Town, but that's not who I'm recommending today. Today I'm recommending Ajax Cape Town. Now, a bit like Ajax, this is the team in South Africa. They are affiliated with Ajax. They're like a academy club, I guess. They feeder club. They're owned by Ajax, and they've brought through a lot of players that have ended up going on to play for Ajax. Notable ones are Iyong Ino, Stephen Pienaar, Fulani Serrero. They've never won the league. Second place is the best they've been able to do, and the last time they did that was 2011. So they've now got also, like I mentioned, a vast range of league competition rivals. There's the obvious ones like Orlando Pirates, like I mentioned, Kaiser Chiefs, Mamelodi Sundowns, but there's been other teams that are in and around it as well. So it's a much more competitive league than it used to be. And obviously you've got to compete with the idea that perhaps Ajax, anyone you get good, Ajax are going to have, they've got first rule on any of your players, they can just take them away. I assume that functions in the game as well. Like I say, I didn't manage them in South Africa, but I'm pretty sure that does apply. So can you fight all those different scenarios and finally take them to a league title? Now that's the clubs over with. The other route you might want to go down, rather than a specific club or a specific idea, is take on a challenge. Now there's lots of different challenges. A lot of them have floated around the SI forums for many years. I've mentioned I've done the Pentagon challenge. We'll talk about that in a minute and about exactly what that is, but these make a bit of a different twist on your save, and there's it's a bit of a roulette really, where you end up to a degree. So we'll start off. This is less of a roulette one, but it's the San Marino to greatness. Now, there are alternatives you can pick, but this tends to be the most popular one and probably the easiest one to put together and manage. But essentially it's a club and a nation. So you've got to win the World Cup with San Marino, which seems simple. Of course, one of the lowest ranked, I think the lowest ranked European team in history. One benefit you do have is that San Marino Calcio, they play in either Serie C or Serie D in Italy. So you can take over that club, build them up, boost them up, whilst managing San Marino at the same time. You can bring through your own players and then just turn them into, get the youth stuff work in the background, develop your own players, and then bring them up to the San Marino national team and turn essentially San Marino into a dominant world power in world football. Sounds easy. It isn't so easy. It takes a few people I've seen that do it. It's taken them many years to even qualify for World Cup, let alone win one. So it's a tough challenge, but it's a different spin on playing the game. So yeah, give this one a try if you want a really long-term investment save. The next one is the Sir Alex Ferguson challenge, and essentially the idea is to replicate what he did to a degree and take over what he did. So in this save, essentially you have to holiday till the 6th of November, which is when he took over Manchester United. They were second bottom in the league at the time, so that's what you're going to do. You're going to take over the team that's second bottom. Now, I've run a few scenarios of this on FM18, not on FM19 yet, and so many times it was Everton, which isn't such a hard challenge. When it's someone like, top of my head, Hull or someone like that, that's when it's tough. But it's still a tough old challenge. It's still a long-term save. So the idea is you stay at this one club, and the essential items you've got to compete against is you've got to bring youth through, you've got to win a domestic cup within 4 seasons, which is what he did, you've got to win a league title within 7, which is what he did, and then you've got to win a league and cup double within 8, which he did in 94 against Chelsea 4-0, and then a treble within 13 years, which he did in 1999, beating Newcastle in the FA Cup, pipping Arsenal unfortunately to the league, and knocking us out in the FA Cup semi-finals of course, and beating Bayern Munich in the final of the Champions League in Barcelona. So that's essentially that challenge. You've got 13 years to do everything he did. Not easy with starting second bottom in November, so go for it. Pentagon challenge. So yeah, I mentioned I've done this one before, and this is very simple. All you have to do is win all 5 possible continental competitions. So it's the Champions League and then every other continent's equivalent of the Champions League. So no Europa Leagues need not apply. You can actually make this a hexagon challenge if you add 6 leagues and get a custom database to feature Oceania and start in somewhere like New Zealand and win that with a New Zealand team. That's probably the best place to start and the easiest way to start it. Australia obviously play in Asia, so that doesn't count. And if you want to make it more difficult, as I did on FM16, which I think is generally the way people do it, you start unemployed with quite a low reputation. It takes you so long to get a job. Like I say, I started in like the second tier of South Africa with Cape Town, but I absolutely loved that, and every step that I took in that, again, it's very random where you end up going, because you have no say over the clubs that come available and who might actually take you on, because your reputation is that low. You have to work from scratch and get your reputation up. The only limit really is the direction you go, because you can only really go in a couple of directions. So you go to Asia or Africa to start off with, and then from there you can go to maybe Australia, somewhere like that, but that's counting Asia, isn't it? Getting to Europe took me many seasons, but I got there eventually with Bayern Munich, and it took me a couple of years after to win stuff with them as well. So yeah, I'd highly recommend that challenge, again, for another long term but very random, like a random save that just takes you in no given direction. The Championship challenge. Now this is something that was one of my save ideas for FM18 last year on my channel, but I didn't get around to it. It was going to be a long term one. It would have taken me too long, and then I stumbled across doing Shakhtar and I absolutely loved that, so that was never going to be a short-term save either. But essentially the idea is, I wasn't going to call it the Championship challenge, I was going to call it something along the lines of the Steve Bruce challenge or the Mick McCarthy challenge, and the idea is just to get a team to the Premier League from the Championship, resign once you get there, and then apply for another job in the Championship, get them up, resign, just keep going, just be known as the Championship manager, literally the Championship manager, so a manager renowned for getting teams promoted but not necessarily managing in the Premier League. So yeah, can you be the new Mick McCarthy? The Director of Football challenge. Now there's slight variations on how this can work. I haven't looked into it too much because it's not one that I've really thought about doing, but I've seen a few people doing it a different way to what I had conceptions of previously. But the idea is essentially you hire a director of football to your club and you make him responsible for everything other than playing the matches. So he hires, fires, signs players, everything like that. That's one way of doing it. The other way is I've seen a few people doing it this year on FM is that they're actually going to be the director of football. So essentially what they're doing, they make their assistant manager in charge of the club, so they leave him to run matches, but you as the director of football, you sign the players, you do everything that a director of football would do, but you just leave the assistant manager to run the club affairs, essentially like the day-to-day training, the games and all that. Now obviously then you can hire him and fire him and change, get someone in if they're not doing the job correctly. The problem with that is if they're not doing it well, you're still the one that takes the hit on it and you will get sacked. But really two interesting different ways of doing the save, and I think Foxy FM did Directors Challenge with AC Milan a couple of versions ago, so if you go back and watch that, maybe it'll give you a bit more of an idea of what that actually entails. Now the final challenge and the final one we're going to be mentioning today is one I've sort of come up with recently. It's kind of a spin-off of the Sir Alex Ferguson challenge to a degree, and it's the Arsene Wenger challenge. So now what you do in this save is you're going to holiday to the 1st of October. Now it's not as simple as that, because it's not as simple as the Alex Ferguson one, because Arsenal weren't second bottom or bottom in the league when Alex Ferguson took over, when Wenger took over. They were actually sitting level top when he officially took charge of his first match on the third the season before in the league. So they weren't struggling. So to say, holiday to the 1st of October and take the team that's the first or in the top 3 or something, isn't going to really work. So the idea is to take charge of a team with a little bit of history, but are not really expected to be winning anything right now. I suppose an Everton would still be a slightly inflated version of that team, but essentially it would work. Someone like that, they got a bit of history, but they're not expected to pull up any trees in the league right now to win a title, maybe win a cup, but not win a title. And what you essentially have to do is you have to deliver a title in the next first full season. So you've got that first season when you take over to do what you got to do, but you have to win the title the next full season. And if you can do a double with a cup, that's extra points, because obviously Wenger did the double in his first full season. And then it's another double needed within another 4 years, along with another FA Cup and unbeaten season. And you get an extra points also for beating the overall 42 games unbeaten in the league, which Wenger did before unfortunately losing to Man United. In there you need a Champions League final within 10 years, and you get a bonus as well for if you win it. Unfortunately Arsenal didn't. And then before finishing, you also need to totally have won 3 league titles, 7 FA Cups, and you also get extra points if a new stadium is built in that time as well. You have 22 seasons to succeed. Can you do it? Now that's the end for this video. I've covered everything that I want to. I might cut 1 or 2 of those out, so it might be too long without it. But if not, you've seen everything that I've sort of suggested for this series. If you're struggling for a few ideas of who to manage, who to play as, feel free to give one of these a go, and let me know in the comments if you are fancying one of these saves, if you are going for one of them. So I'd like to hear your thoughts and your feedbacks, particularly the challenges, and if that's something you're going to go with. If you're putting it on YouTube as well, let me know. I'll certainly drop you a sub and take a look at them. Or if not, just post sort of stuff like updates on Twitter, anything like that, and let me know how you're getting on, or even any comments, let me know just what you're doing and how you're getting on. So until my next video, I'll see you later. Take care.